Do you love your brain? It might seem like a funny question, but it's actually an important one. And in this episode of the Positive Choices podcast, I get to talk to Dr. Hoke Echo, an incredible pediatrician and brain health coach expert, as we explore trauma, ADHD, and general practices for helping shift our mindset about our brains so that we can live healthier and happier lives. Let's get started.
So, hello, listeners. So, I'm Dr. Hoke Echo. I'm a board certified pediatrician. I'm also a brain health coach. Where do I start? Okay, so I have three amazing kids. I do currently work as a pediatrician. I'm also a TV host for Brain Power TV. It's this channel that was created in July of this year, with the purpose of just teaching parents and kids how to fall in love with their brain and how powerful our brains are. And,
Mhm.
if we learn to fall in love with our brains, then we actually fall in love with our lives because everything we do, say, eat, it all affects our brains. And if we are more aware of that, then we can improve our lives. So that's one thing I do. And then I also run a program to teach kids with ADHD and their parents how to fall in love with their brains and so they can live healthy, wholesome lives. It's an amazing program where I walk you through brain health and also different things you can do with your children to help optimize their brain function and help them feel better and all of you bond better together as a family. I also run a nonprofit called Kids of Hope for foster kids because I don't know, I was doing some child abuse training at work, and then I realized, oh my word, because we're talking about foster children during training. And it's not like
Mhm.
I didn't know I had foster kids in my practice, but it dawned
Yeah.
on me when I was doing that training, like, oh my gosh, there's all these kids. And the amazing thing about it is these kids, at least let me speak about my state. In the state of Oklahoma, it seems like
Mhm.
most of them get taken out of their homes with nothing that's theirs. It's either they may take it out in a sack, a trash bag, which is not good for anybody, definitely not for a child,
That's
or they just
heartbreaking.
have nothing. And
Yeah,
so if you know kids, I mean, one of the first words is mine, right? And now we just
exactly.
rid kids of everything they know, no matter how bad it was, it's what they know. And
Mhm.
then they have nothing that's there. So that's an extra layer of trauma. And so it
Wow.
bothered me so much, I decided I'm going to do something about it. So I started this nonprofit, and what we do is we put bags together with all brand new items because I strongly feel that children should feel that they are worth it and valuable enough to have brand new items and not just secondhand. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's what I decided.
I love
And
that.
so it's comfort items like blankets, toys, books,
Mm.
and also items to like clothing or underwear just to help them through the first few days or at least the first day that they're in the system. And so it's called Kits of Hope. And so that's what we do. So
What
that's
a
yeah.
beautiful organization and work that you do. And man, just being a ray of hope and helping these children. And if people want to be able to learn more about Kits of Hope in particular, how do they learn more about that?
Okay, so our website is called KITS of Hope, one word.org. And we also have a Facebook page as well by the same name. So those are the main ways, yes. And our email is kidsofhope1 at gmail.com. So if you'd like to send us a message or inquiry, any of that will be welcome. So
That's wonderful. And I'll also put that email address and website in our show notes, as well as in the description on
okay,
YouTube. So thank you for
great.
sharing that about Kits of Hope. And I would just love to know more about the work you do as a pediatrician and with families who are experiencing ADHD in their child's lives. And I know that's something that we get a lot of questions about. And how can we help
Right.
support our children? And I love what you said that has to do with Brain Power TV, and that's having people fall in love with their brain. That I love the way you word that. And I think that's such a beautiful mindset shift.
Yes. I think I'm going to start calling myself Dr. brain love.
I
And
like
I'll
it.
tell you why. I have a
Tell me
brain
about
story as
that.
well. So from the age of 5, I can't explain why I wanted to be a pediatrician, even though I was scared stiff of hospitals. I was that kid that would go into the hospital and need a bunch of people to hold me down because of shots. So, but here I am. But yeah, so I had it somewhere in my head that I was going to be a pediatrician, and I was in junior year of college, and then I was driving, and I got into a car accident, and I hit my head on the steering wheel. So of course I got sent off for therapy and all the associated whiplash and all of that.
Mm.
So would you believe it or not? 6 months to the day I had the first one. I had just gotten discharged from physical therapy the day before. I had a second one.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And I hit my head again. So this
Dr.
time,
Oh,
I know.
oh.
Yes, it was one of the hardest places in my life. But so this time I did start having trouble in school. I went from an A student and I was failing and I was pre-med, I started failing my physics and all of that. So I got sent to see a neuropsychologist. And so he examined me and then he asked me, so young lady, what is it you want to do with your life? So I said, well, I want to be a pediatrician. And you know what he said to me?
What do you
He told
say?
me, you will never go to medical school. You only have
Oh,
average intelligence and you need to go find something else to do.
oh, that gives me goosebumps. Just hearing that. Just what a heartbreaking feedback to receive.
So, yes.
But you
So
proved,
I was heartbroken. That's like mildly put. And I
yes.
was totally depressed. And of course, unfortunately, I believed him. So I proceeded to completely fail out of school that semester.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, what am I going to do with myself? But my parents decided, nope, that was not going to be good enough. So they're like, back to college you go the next semester. They're like, we're going to work with you. You're going to make it. They kept telling me I was their doctor and I was going to make it. So I went back to college after I
oh,
took some time off. Was it easy? Nope. It was pretty hard. And of course, I kept hearing the words in my head ringing about how I couldn't do it. So it was an uphill battle, but I made it. And here I am.
that's so
So,
inspiring. That's
so
amazing.
yeah. But then you know how sometimes memories, you just tuck them away. And I didn't think of it for years, right?
Yes.
Then when I started practicing and I started running across all these kids with ADHD who would point blank tell me, well, I can't do that. It's the ADHD. And
Mm,
hearing the way the parents describe them as these kids who basically are not good enough, can't sit still, they don't know what's wrong with them. And the teachers would just send me kids and with a diagnosis to my office. Oh, the kid has ADHD, fix them. I'm like, we haven't even talked. How do you have a diagnosis for this child already? So,
yes.
I started noticing more and more and more kids with these issues. And then I was like, well, I give them medication, but then medication runs out. And then we're back to the same thing in the evening. Then what? Right?
Yes.
So it's like, so we're treating them with this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with medication, but
Mhm.
it seemed to me like they weren't really getting better. And especially their social emotional health was really bad.
Do you feel
Parents
like
didn't
that
believe in
affects?
them. They didn't believe in
Yeah.
themselves. So of course they didn't do well in school. And I felt like that was a cycle. And about the same time, I started learning about ACEs, like adverse childhood experiences, and how things that happen in childhood physically affect the health of your brain.
Mm.
And then I guess I remembered my brain story. And I was like, if my parents had given up on me, I would be probably not sitting here and I would be in the same shoes as this kid. So how about I go figure out how else to help them? So that's what led me on this journey to just reading more and learning more about ADHD. And yes, it's a brain-based disorder, but that doesn't mean your child is written off. I mean, the fact that the child has that diagnosis, I mean, it can be their superpower if you change the way you look at it.
Can I pause
So
you
I
for a moment?
realized,
Can I
what?
pause? Can you say that again about the superpower? That's amazing.
Yes. So I said that even if your child has a diagnosis of ADHD, it doesn't mean it's a disability. It can be their superpower if you change the way you look at it. So if you parents change the way you look at it, then the child will follow suit and will change the way they see themselves and they
That
will
needs
do
to be a
better.
bumper sticker or something. I just love that. I'm going to write that down when I go through this
Yes,
audio.
it's so
Yeah.
true. And so it hit me, and I was like, hey, because I did realize, I started thinking, how did I make it after I had that diagnosis?
Mhm.
So what was it? And then I realized I actually fell in love with who I was and the way my brain was, regardless of what they said was wrong with me, right?
Yes.
And I decided that I could do something, and I did it. So I thought, what if we apply the same thing to kids with ADHD and we taught them, hey, um, about their brains and how amazing their brains were, even if it wasn't like everybody else's. And yes, they may learn differently, but that doesn't make them less than all the other kids running around.
Yes.
And I thought, it would make a difference. And it does, because I tried it
Oh,
with my patients. So I'll tell you a story. So I had this 12-year-old. He was in foster care and he was also diagnosed with ADHD. And there
mm,
is lots of research that shows, like I told you about the adverse childhood experiences,
mm.
that kids who have been traumatized as children can also develop symptoms that mimic ADHD. So, like
Okay.
inattention and hyperactivity. And so this kid, yes, matched all of that because
Mm.
he had such a traumatic childhood and it was still persistent till now. I mean, he was in and out of homes and the whole 9 yards. So, anyways, I saw him this day in my office and I said to him, hey, so tell me, uh, would you like your brain to feel better? He's like, my brain? I said, yeah, your brain. And he said, yeah. So how do we do that? So I told him, hey, so what if you drank a little bit more water and you put away your phone at nighttime, because that blue light on your phone tells your brain, hey, stay awake, and then you don't sleep well. So I just told him those two things. And because I went at it from the brain versus, oh, I'm going to hit you with some medications and the whole
Yes.
usual story, he was all into it and he listened. And then I saw him a few weeks later, and this kid was different. He had started sleeping better. Before that, we had him on medication for sleeping because he couldn't sleep. And that's something
Wow.
lots of kids with ADHD have. They have trouble sleeping. But if you can address the sleep, their brain function improves because the brain absolutely needs sleep.
Sleep
So
is
that
critical.
it's critical, but that's something we don't realize a lot of. And so, because he did the simple thing of putting away his phone, like outside his room, so he wasn't affected by the blue light, and because he drank, it was one or two more bottles than he usually does, just a little more. But water is critical to the brain. The brain is 80% water. So if you don't give it enough water, it won't function well, right? So if we're doing just simple things to help your kid, have them drink more water, take the devices out of their rooms at night, or even stop devices an hour before, because all of those, the rays emitted from the devices plus the lights will tell the brain stay awake, and then the brain stays awake, and then the kid can't sleep, and then the kid doesn't act right, and then we say the kid is a problem, and then it's a cycle.
That makes so much sense to me. One of the things that I found is kids watch us and what we do. And so if
Right,
we start to model, oh, I'm going to drink a little more water and
right.
I'm going to turn my phone off, or let's put our phones here as a family. And once
Yes.
you start to model that, have you found that that's a powerful tool for having
Oh,
kids get on board?
yes, absolutely. So I just happen to be telling this kid, but yeah, I tell the parents because it absolutely starts with parents. So if the kids will not necessarily do what we say, they'll do what we do. So,
That's
so
powerful.
yeah, because I have parents in my office when I say, let's try and change what we are eating. And then immediately the parents say, hey, are you listening? Stop drinking soda. But then I'm like, I talk to the parents, but who's buying the soda?
Yes,
I'm like,
yes. And
you
who's
change your
drinking the Red
shopping
Bull?
list, right?
Yeah.
No soda in the house, no soda drunk. End of
Yeah.
story.
Oh,
Right? So yes, parents, it's I don't mean to put you on the spotlight, but really you are in the street. It all starts with the parents. Yeah. So if parents would just make small changes in what we're doing, I'm not asking you never to have fun or never to drink any of that stuff, but
yes.
if you just slowly replace it with maybe more fruits versus the sodas, just slowly over time, it does make a difference in the way your child's brain functions. Yeah.
That's amazing. What are some of those top tips that you have for parents? For instance, you mentioned turning off phones or technology, and that's 60 minutes before bed. Is that the ideal time?
Yes, yes.
Okay, doing that, drinking more water. What's the ideal amount of water for children to drink? And I'm sure that varies based on their age and size.
Yes, it does. So in general, yes, I'm sure everybody has heard the drink 8 cups of water a day. It is
Hmm.
true. Yes, because you'll be surprised how little water people we drink. So, and the way I tell my patients is, I mean, just increase it by one every week or every 2 weeks. So you slowly get to that point. If I told them drink a gallon today, they won't. So
Yeah,
they wouldn't do it. So
baby
just
steps.
one every 2 weeks, add one more bottle a day, and then you slowly build it up that way. And how about doing it as a family, like a competition? Hey, let's drink water together. I mean, we adults will feel better, and the children will definitely feel better. So it's a win-win. And then
Definitely.
the other things I would say with regards to devices, there's lots of research coming out showing that all of the rays emitted from our devices, like our Wi-Fi, it does affect sleep. So
Mm.
actually, I tell my parents now to turn off Wi-Fi at nighttime
Wow.
just to decrease, just to help with sleep. Yeah, and it does make a difference. At home, I've seen that when I turn it off, my kids are they rest easier. I can't explain it, but and there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. And in addition to being mindful about our devices and water, thinking about Wi-Fi and what that looks like when we are sleeping, what are
right.
a couple more things that you would say are, helpful for families and kids?
Okay, so a few more things. One of them would be um exercise. So again, if we look at it from the brain, from the angle of the brain, so it's not just okay, exercise more. So what exercise does for your brain is that it increases the amount of oxygen that goes to your brain. And the
Mm,
brain is the most oxygen hungry organ of the body. It needs more oxygen than anything else. So if we love our brains, right, we're gonna do the little extra we need to do to give it some more oxygen, to give it some love. Lots of research in kids with ADHD that when they incorporate exercise into their day, it does help them function better. So,
that's
little brain
that's important.
breaks is another thing parents can incorporate, and that will help significantly with the homework battles. Because if and when what's a brain break? It's just taking a minute or two and doing something different from what you've been doing. So, for example, if your child can focus, if you've noticed your child can focus for 10 minutes at a time, there's no point forcing them to do homework for an hour straight because it's not going to get done. So, both of you will be fighting at the end of the hour and the
Yes.
homework won't be done, right? So instead, after 10 minutes, we're going to stop. And if your child has been sitting and your child is one of those children who seems to have a lot of energy, then what you can do is either you can race them up and down the hall, they can run around the backyard one time, they can cycle. I mean, whatever it takes, just a little activity will boost oxygen levels to their brain. And when they come back to sit down after the 1 minute and they sit back to do their homework, they actually can do it better and do something else. And see, everybody is peaceful at the end of it and homework is done.
That's wonderful. I work with families and teachers, and I don't know
Right.
if you experience this. Sometimes I hear from caregivers and educators that they see children as being defiant or, well, they just don't want to do their homework. So I'm going to be really strict and force them to get it done because they need to
Right.
have that work ethic. But what I'm
Right.
hearing you say is that if we come at this from a brain-based approach, we're just letting caregivers know, actually, when you take this break, it's going to
Right.
help them. It's not that they're being defiant or that they're,
No.
pushing back, but they're actually, in a way, they're being an advocate for themselves, right?
Yes, they just need it. And if you do it with them, then that not only tells them that you see them, right? But then it also increases the bond between you and your child because now you're doing something that they need, but then you're doing it together. So then your bond increases, and God knows how much bonding we all need with our kids, right? So these
That's
are little ways you can incorporate it through the day. Yeah.
That's really powerful. Another way that I see this is in elementary schools. And so sometimes, and maybe you could speak to this as well, children who struggle with executive function, impulse control. Oftentimes in schools, these are the students who are kept in during recess because maybe they blurted out or they were touching other kids with their hands.
Right.
And so the teacher says, "You owe me 5 minutes," when these are the kids who would really benefit from being outside and moving their
Right.
bodies. So it's
Yeah. So give them the
counterintuitive.
5 minutes outside and then they'll be able to communicate with you better versus
Yes.
keeping them in and then they don't get any exercise and then their brains are not firing because really there's okay. ADHD has been found it's basically it comes down to brain waves, right?
Mhm.
So kids diagnosed with ADHD have lots more slower brain waves than other people. So if we know things that will help improve the way their brains are firing, then that's what we want to do. We don't want to punish them. I mean, they already feel punished enough, right? They already feel like
Yes.
they are less than, and then you keep keeping them in. That's not helpful. And so, yes, for sure, please. I mean, I've even seen schools where they now let the kids have under the desk cycles. Like they're these little bikes. I have one. It's so cool. Like and I
I
let
need
it
one of
go
those.
under your desk. Yeah. So for the kids who are a little fidgety, they can cycle under their desk. And then, well, right? Because that little exercise, that's cardio, plus it's boosting oxygen and it helps them function better.
Does that affect their brain waves, their brain activity, and it gives them that boost neurologically?
Yes, it does.
That's so helpful for learning. Something that I've told teachers is if you really want to connect with the child about, let's say they hit someone and you need to have that repair and you need to problem solve with them, go
Right.
outside to recess and maybe walk around with them. Maybe pass the basketball back and forth and or the
Right.
the ball and you're talking and processing and moving
Right.
and you're still having that repair, but maybe move together. Have you seen that be
Yes.
effective?
So good. Yeah, it's just like what I was saying about the parents doing it together, the teachers too. I know teachers are overwhelmed. Thank you, teachers listening. You're doing an
Yes.
amazing job. But
Yes.
yes, if you would, the ones who quote unquote are difficult, go bond with them at recess. You'll be amazed how they will, because I could almost bet that at home they're not doing that with them either, because
Yes.
that's why they're kids just crave the attention. They just want to know that you can see them and they're not this invisible people. So if you spend the time it takes for you to for just to connect with them, I mean, it's amazing. I'll tell you something. My 9-year-old yesterday or 2 days ago, I was trying to get him to do something, and he said to me, "When was the last 3 times you played with me?" I said, "Huh?" I said, he said, "Yes, name them." He's like, "This person, I wanted to play Pokemon with you, and you handed the cards to my sister. And this other person played the Beyblade with me, and somebody else read to me. And what were you doing?" Oh my God. So, I mean, yeah, so that brought it home to me. So I asked him and I said, "So when mommy plays with you, does that make you feel loved?" And he said, at first he hesitated. And then I said, "No, really, I really want to know." And then he said, "Yes." And so then you
Oh,
see it. My son, I run around all day long after work taking care of him. But for him, the way he spells love, oh, but that's what I'm writing about, right? The way he spells love is play. so so yes, and it's so important that we as parents understand every kid has their different ways they spell love. And yes, you may say, "Oh, it takes a long time," but no. Even if I've noticed that the times I spend 2 minutes playing his Pokemon cards with him, he's so much more attentive. He treats his younger sister better because he feels good, and we're filling up
wow.
his love pot. So yeah, I'm writing a book called Children's Love Letters. It's almost ready. So I'm hoping in the next 2 months it'll be released. So yeah, it's the subtitle is A Pediatrician's Guide to How Your Child Spells Love. And essentially what I told you about my son is the kind of things and just going through the different ways children spell love. So parents are aware and can bond better with their kids. So
And it seems like not only does that help our children, like you said, your child is more attentive and, is able to maybe follow directions. And so
yes,
not only as adults and teachers, we see beneficial behavior in a way that makes our lives a little bit easier, but
right,
also it is creating and strengthening that connection. And we know
right,
that secure attachment in the research is one of the number one indicators
yes,
for how a human turns out or how, their later life outcomes. So
yeah.
that bond, when you refer to the bond, is that also touching on secure attachment?
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Wonderful. Oh,
That's
and
the long name for it.
exactly. Bond is a lot easier to say, but we're
Yes,
going to have an episode all about secure, different attachment styles, including secure attachment.
right.
Something else I wanted to add, all of this has been incredible information. If a parent is wondering whether or not their child is experiencing ADHD, what does that process look like? How do they differentiate, various behaviors, and when do they reach out to their pediatrician, and then how is that determined?
Okay, so what I tell parents is if you have concerns about your child not being able to pay attention and or what we call hyperactivity, meaning like it seems like they're driven by a motor and they can't seem to turn off.
Hmm.
Um, well, before I used to say, okay, go into your pediatrician and they'll test. Now I say, is there anything else going on in the house that we need to talk about?
Mm,
Because I
wow.
say that, and because lots of research has shown that there are multiple. So, yes, we have this umbrella term ADHD, but there are multiple causes of ADHD. So, things like trauma, things like the
Mhm.
environments, things like actually ADHD is 50% hereditary. So do you or your
Oh,
husband have
yeah.
it, or mother, does mother or father have the same symptoms? That could give you a clue to that too as well. Nutrition is another thing. Kids who are malnourished will exhibit behaviors of
Mhm.
inattention and hyperactivity. So for me, the biggest question is not um what is wrong with my child. The biggest question is why is my child, what's causing the behavior. So because if you ask why, then you're going to figure out why, versus we've already labeled the kid as bad, like what's wrong with you, right? You can't get it right.
Yes.
So if we ask the why question first, I mean you can do that with the help of your pediatrician, but it's always important we ourselves as parents to ask what else is going on around us that could potentially be contributing to the symptoms. Because if a child does not feel loved, and if they feel like um, the only time you respond to them is when they're doing something bad, they will continue to
Mm,
do bad things to get your attention. And then we're
mhm.
going to label them as something, as
Yes.
being unfocused. But really, all they want is your attention. And I've seen that happen too. So
Wow.
I want parents to think about that as they go in to see their pediatrician. And yes, to have a formal diagnosis of ADHD, you do have to see your pediatrician, and they will go through the questionnaires with you, and hopefully your pediatrician will ask all these other questions. But we don't always, because that's not what we are trained to do. But yes, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
That does. That does. And the way you worded it is us when we position ourselves and we change our mindset just by saying why, that can help us look for solutions, become solution
Right.
oriented rather
Yes.
than just maybe getting stuck on the vernacular or a diagnosis, but
Right.
wanting to have a
Yeah.
holistic approach to healing.
And that's the way I approach it in my program. I look at the whys, like what have we addressed all of these things. And then if we have, and we still, and I'm not against medication, but I don't think that should be the first thing. And we have to address what else is going on and see if there are other things we can augment to help the
Mhm.
child's behaviors improve. And then if absolutely we need medication, then yes, your pediatrician can start your medication. But yeah.
Thank you so much for answering that question that we get all the time. But
Yes.
before we sign off, what is the best way for our listeners and viewers to get in touch with the work you're doing, learn more about the support you provide for families in regard to ADHD? How can they find you?
Okay, so a few ways. So I have a YouTube channel, the Brain Power TV with Dr. Echo, that's on. Yes, you can subscribe. We have lots of great interviews and information on there. And also, if you want to email me, if you're interested in being a part of the program I run, you can just email me at okeheecho@gmail.com and I will get back to you. Yes.
Wonderful. And I'll put all those things, show notes and in the
Yeah.
description. So thank you
Thank
again for
you.
your time. I am so thrilled for everyone to be able to hear your powerful message. And thank you for telling us about your story. That was really impactful.
Thank you. My pleasure.